It's the Knicks, Jets, etc. podcast with Alex Trataros, John Meleka, and Raisi on the beat. Let's go.
What's good, everyone? Alex Trataros here with another Knicks episode of the Knicks, Jets, etc. podcast. And with me is always my buddy, my pal, the man with the plan, the one and only. I'm getting a little stumbled over here, John. The one and only, John Meleka. Before we ask John how he's doing today, guys, you know what it is. And ladies, everyone out there, if you listen to this podcast and you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. We're on all audio listening platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, Stitcher, you name it. We are there. If you listen to us on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to give us that 5-star rating. And if you listen to us on Apple, please make sure to leave a comment. That just helps. We're also on YouTube. Type in Knicks, Jets, etc. Period. No one writes out, etc. That's just wild. All right. Make sure to subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That way you know when a new episode drops. And when you watch a video, hit the like button, leave a comment, add to the conversation. Please make sure to add to the conversation. You guys have been doing a great job. That Berman video still keeps going. Y'all really love Berman. I love it. And y'all really got some opinions about this team and me undervaluing this team. I see you, Frank Brown. Don't worry. I like your comments. Don't worry. I'm getting back to you. It's just been a while. And while you're over there, we got another podcast, Winning Picks Weekly. John, video producer Greg, and our guy Chip Murphy. These guys have been going down everything. MLB, NBA. They're going to be doing NFL when that comes around because Chip missed out last season. I'm sure they're going to be doing hockey a little bit. I don't even know. They might even touch on hockey because you got hockey playoffs coming around. If you need to place a bet down, these guys got you covered. Make sure to do so responsibly, but make sure to check them out. Winning Picks Weekly. And then last and certainly not least, please make sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. You name it. We are there. John, my guy.
What's up, man?
It's been a while, man. We're down to 2 weeks. For everyone that doesn't know, we're now down to 2 weeks. No Jets, no Knicks seasons. We're not doing 3 times a week. When we get back to that, we'll be doing it. But my man, how you been? It's been a while. Happy Easter. We had our Orthodox Easter past weekend.
Happy
unlike
Easter.
you, unlike me, I celebrate too. I got to celebrate for the Jamaicans. I got to celebrate for the Greeks. So you know what?
Yeah, I feel you, man. It's been a hell of a week. We did slow down because the Knicks season's over. NBA playoffs is hot though. Definitely check out Winning Picks Weekly for that. Things have been really back and forth there, but you know, Chip has been all over it. Greg and I, we're reeling back over here. I think we've been doing okay, but this interesting stuff going on in round 2. We got the Jets draft coming up. Definitely check out the new Jets episodes. I'm sure an emergency podcast will be coming. Lots of wide receiver talk, lots of crazy nonsense, smoke screens going on. The 4th pick, 10th pick. It's going to be a fun and interesting week there. But dude, when it comes to the Knicks, it literally is never down season. Even if we're not in the playoffs, there's always things going on right now. I feel like every playoff series, even the announcers are mentioning the Knicks, right? We got Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell talk. We got
everything.
Randle showing up to games, dude. There's just never a downtime for being a Knicks and a Jets
Worldwide
fan, so.
West sitting sideline at the Utah Jazz and Mavericks game. You don't know if it's for Donovan Mitchell, for Jalen Brunson. Who knows? Who knows?
It could be for Danny Ainge because he was so pissed. So whatever it is, I'm okay with it. But you know what, man? It feels like a new start for all our teams. And you mentioned the playoffs. The Rangers over here about to make the playoffs, trying to get some Rangers playoffs games, smell some playoff stuff in Madison Square Garden. I'm doing all right now. Spring coming out. Life is good out here. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. You know, like you celebrated Easter, you know, watching these good playoff games. Seems like Knicks fans are up in a tizzy because they don't know who to root for, whether it's the Celtics or the Nets. How about this? Don't root for anybody. Hope for both these teams to lose, but let the Nets get the first round exit. That's more of a catastrophe than the Celtics with the first round exit. So let's go that direction. That's all I'm going to say. Go that direction
today as we speak. Scott
I don't know what's going to happen with that one. Scott Foster is going to ruin everything. He's going to ruin my agenda. He's going to ruin this sweep agenda, and I'm going to hate it. But I don't want to hold this guy off. I don't want to hold our special guest off to the side any longer. We got a wonderful guest, guys. If you know, we're heavy on Twitter, but guess what? There are also other social media outlets out there. We got LinkedIn, as we said, TikTok's big, and we got a wonderful guest with us today. He's kind of in our sphere as being being an attorney, but he left the attorney world. We got a wonderful guest. His name is Alex Su. You can go find him on TikTok as Legal Tech Bro. All right. He is let me get this straight. He is now, because he left the legal game. John, he left the legal game. He is the head of community development at Ironclad Inc. Mr. Alex Su, how are you doing today, my man? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show and for that introduction.
Oh, of course, man. And for the listeners out there, they're probably wondering, why are you guys going in this direction? Because most of our listeners are probably on Twitter. And well, let me tell you, Alex Su here is a Knicks fan. If you go check out his TikTok videos, you'll see him wearing a Yankees cap, wearing a Knicks cap. He may be out in LA, but like anything, Knicks fans and Yankees fans, we're all over the place. So we got Alex Su on to talk about Knicks, get some history about his fandom, learn about his career path. So yeah, Alex, let's start off with that. Let's start off with your Knicks history. How did it all start, man? I know you're living out in California right now. What's the vibe, man? What's going on? Are you still? How did it all happen?
Well, I live in California now, and my career has taken me all the way out here to the West Coast. But I'm a New York guy. I grew up in Queens and Long Island, and when I was 10 years old, I started following basketball, and I would watch the local team, the Knicks, and I was like, oh, I don't know much about sports. My family, we're immigrants. They didn't really follow sports. So I was like, all right, I want to see what this is all about. So I started watching the games, and it was like incredible. The Knicks were killing it. That first year I watched, they went all the way to the NBA Finals, and I was like, every round I would root for them, and they would win, and they would pull it off. And so it got all the way to the finals, and they lost to the Rockets, as we all know, in '94 in 7 games. But I thought, this is the team for me. I love basketball. I love playing basketball. I love following basketball. This is the team for me. And ever since then, I've been a lifelong Knicks fan, although I don't think we've ever come anywhere near as close. I think there were a couple of times, like, in '99, we went to the finals, lost to the Spurs. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. And, I've ever since I turned 18, I moved out of the house. I lived all over the U.S. and I feel like my Knicks, being a fan of the Knicks keeps me grounded, keeps me tied to the community I grew up in, back in Queens and Long Island. So, yeah, I mean, I followed the Knicks in some years. I get really into it when the Knicks are doing well. When things aren't going well, I kind of take a little step back. So I love watching NBA basketball, but obviously I will always root for the Knicks, no matter what.
That's probably how you keep a healthy lifestyle, man. Because if you ask our fans, if you ask us, like day in and day out with these New York Knicks, man, it does things to not only your mental health, your physical health. Like I know Alex is sometimes looking at me like, dude, your blood pressure right now, like just chill out. It's game 37. Like just take it easy. But that's good, man. Speaking of these '94 Knicks, we just broke a record that was broken around there by our boy John Starks, right? We had Evan Fournier break the 3-point record this year, but just all in vain, dude, all in vain. Even if we have, good memories, it's just all overshadowed by, the stigma of these New York Knicks. And my question to you is, I know you said 94, I know you mentioned 2000, but what about in the last, I don't know, 20 years? Like what has kept you to this franchise? Because honestly, man, like you said, your dad, you came from an immigrant family. I came from immigrant family. My grandpa, came here, worked in the States for like 30 years. My dad's been here, and they love sports. And all they know and their favorite joke to make is, in my 30 years, 40 years of being here, I've never seen the Knicks win a game. Like that's their favorite, their favorite statement. He's like, I've never even seen them win a game. So what kept you here, man? You went to LA. Like you had the Lakers, kind of the quasi new sports town, right? LA, Boston, unfortunately. Like what kept you connected to the orange and blue?
I think it's a couple of things. I think there was an emotional connection with the team. And, I can tell you, like, between the time I was 10 and, when I left my house and when I was 18, like I followed every game. I listened to the WFAN because my parents didn't let me have cable TV. So I would listen to Mike Breen, and I would listen to West Coast games in my room, at 10:30 Eastern. And so I was just so obsessed in those years. And I remember my parents said the same thing. They would always watch me, loyally dedicated, listening to the radio, watching NBA on NBC. Like, they're like, why are you following this team. This team never wins. Like the Knicks, they never win. Like why are you doing this to yourself?
Welcome
I
to
never
my
had
life, bro.
I know. I that's when you said that, it's so relatable because I couldn't really answer it. I don't really know, but there was some emotional connection. Plus the fact that I think in those 90s, we came pretty close a couple of times, and we did generally pretty well. I think what happened after I left, when I went off to college in 2001, I lost touch with the Knicks a bit, and I don't know how they didn't do well some years, but I feel like there was always this part of being a Knicks fan that kept me close to the New York community. That when I met my wife, we were living in Chicago. She would say to me, she's not a huge sports fan. She's like, why do you like this team? They're not the same people as when you were growing up with them. And I'd be like, it's deeper than that. It's the Knicks. Like it's an institution that draws us all together. And even when the Nets moved over to Brooklyn, I got some questions from some people. I don't know if you all got questions like this, but it was like, hey, are you gonna be like a Brooklyn fan now? Like that's allowed now. I'm like, no, that's not allowed. I can't do that. And I lived in San Francisco for about 7 years, and that's right when the Warriors started doing well. People ask me the same question, like, why don't you just follow the Warriors? I just couldn't do it. I just can't do it. It's I can't explain really why. It defies rationality, I guess.
Hey, look, they're division rivals. I know the proximities there. I know we are in the same state, in the same city, technically, right, within the 5 boroughs. But dude, they're a division rival. To me, it drives me nuts when people are like, "Oh, why don't you hop on the Brooklyn bandwagon? They're right there." So it's like asking a New York Islanders fan to be a New York Rangers fan. Like it just makes no sense. It drives me nuts.
I totally feel you with like moving and then asking like to root for another team, because I moved from New York to Boston because I went to law school out here. I got my job out here, and I always rock my New York gear, whether it's Jets, Knicks, Yankees, whatever. I'm not afraid to do so. And people are like, "Why don't you just root? You're in Celtics territory. Why don't you just root for Boston?" I'm like, I will never root for Boston. I cannot do that. Like, I love basketball. I could appreciate good basketball. Like, I could appreciate teams like what they did, but I will never root for a Boston team. Come on, especially like New York, Boston. That's just ridiculous. That's just unheard of. And my wife's from Boston. Like, so she's like, she's like, well, we had KG, we had Paul Pierce. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, yeah, I struggled. I got, I had to deal with Stephon Marbury. I had Nate Robinson. I had all these guys. All right. David Lee was what you thought was the second coming of a power forward, but it's all good. We all thought Stoudemire was going to do it. Look, John and I are still dying off of Stoudemire hitting that 3-pointer that should have counted. So that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
remember that shot.
Yeah. Bad memories.
Everyone remembers that shot. I still die for this day for that shot. I needed it. I need it right in KG's face. I needed it.
And then he punched a fire extinguisher.
So, yeah. That's right.
But it wasn't all bad. We had some recent success with the Melo years and even before then. But Alex, what were some of like your favorite times like being a Knicks fan? Because like there hasn't been that many. Like obviously the 90s was like the gamut for most fans. It's like, all right, Ewing, Starks, Oakley, you had X-Man, you had all these guys on the team, you name it. And from there, it's just been kind of, we had some cool players. Like I like Jamal Crawford. Like I find him entertaining. Well, when he was in the league, but what were your favorite time periods like throughout your Knicks fandom so far? Because it's been bad until like last season, but what were some of your favorite times?
I'll tell you the time that stands out to me the most is, Linsanity. I think for many of us, especially those of us Asian American, it was a big movement, and just to see him do well on the Knicks. I mean, as an Asian kid from New York, like it was like a dream come true. And I remember when I was when Linsanity took place, it's probably been 10 years now. I had just graduated from law school. I was clerking for a judge. My judge was also an Asian guy from Queens. We would every morning, catch up and talk about this kid, Jeremy Lin on the Knicks, like doing well. And in the very beginning, I don't know if you remember, there was like a Celtics game or something. I don't know exactly what game it was, but it was before Linsanity, before that big breakout game against the Nets. It was almost like he was coming. And so we would talk about it, be like, oh, this kid's doing well. And then as it took off, I mean, it just like, it captivated the entire like country, and captivated all of Knicks fandom. I remember while it was happening, I think they came to town to Chicago because I was clerking in Chicago. I went to law school in Chicago, and I went to a game, and that was a really interesting experience because I had been to the Garden before. I had never been to a Knicks game on the road, and that was a really interesting experience. Even though everyone was really rooting for Jeremy Lin, I mean, I was straight in Bulls territory at the United Center, so that was a really cool experience. Cheering loudly for the Knicks. I'm not even sure if we won that. I think we might have lost that game. But what Jeremy Lin did, and I think that part of the Knicks history will always sticks with me. And then over the intervening years, I know that Melo's done well and helped the team out a lot. I fall in and out with the fandom because I think a lot of people they still follow. I kind of like whenever things aren't going well, I kind of like shrink back.
It's healthy. That's healthy.
It's been
don't worry. It's good for your health.
And I think last year I was excited because I had stepped back for a bit, but then I saw the Knicks made the playoffs. But then Trae Young and the Hawks. I mean, we couldn't. It was a tough break. So this year I think I'm still on my pause, but I think that the hope will last forever, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to continue being a Knicks fan for the next 10, 20, 50, however long.
No, and John, as John said, like as our listeners are diehards. Like they're really like we all like we're in there locked all 82, and so it's healthy. It's healthy that you step back because my wife will look at me and she'd be like, "What are you doing? Did they lose? Were they up 20?" And I was like, "Yeah, they were up 20." They're like, "How'd they lose?" I'm like, "I don't want to get into this right now. I got Knicks fan TV. This is ridiculous."
That's so but it is. Wait, and for the diehards, man, I just looked up the box score for that Knicks Bulls game. The Knicks were up 104-99. But dude, I gotta just say the rosters real quick. We had Mike Bibby, we had Baron Davis on that squad.
Oh yeah,
that was back in the day against, of course, Joakim Noah. D Rose dropped 32 on our heads. Ronnie Brewer even got some minutes. Man, good times. Taj Gibson dropping 15 and 13 on us, double. Damn. Those are
who was the coach then? Who was the coach then?
Some guy named Tom.
Familiar set of names, man. Familiar names.
And now we got some of those guys on our team. Look at how the times change, especially for Derrick Rose with the second stint. But that, man, like I feel you on that. And for Linsanity was just a great. I mean, I was hyped with Linsanity. Not only were we talking about a demographic that hasn't really been represented in the NBA at all, but it was just not only was that like a story, but like he brought like a lot of hope for like everybody nationwide, and that was the most captivating thing possible. I will never forget watching him against the Nets and take Deron Williams down. I was like, yes, let's go. Him showing up against Kobe, I was like, yes, let's go. And then the Raptors game winner, like that 2-week stretch, and it was. Not only was it Jeremy Lin, not only was it like the thought of like Knicks fans, like, do we have a point guard solution? Because we haven't had that answer in like God knows when. But it was also the fact that it was like team basketball, guys coming together and really just putting the city on their back for a good stint until Miami came along, and then LeBron and D-Wade was just like, we're gonna stop this right now. We're gonna make sure this guy doesn't have too much fun. But that was a great time period. I just remember like everyone had that TV on. Everyone had that TV.
Mm-hmm.
But you talked about law school and being out in Chicago, and I can relate about that. So let's get into like your legal career.
Yeah.
So you went to Northwestern. How did that? Was that like your top choice? Did you want to go out to Chicago? Was like Chicago the place you wanted to be? Oh, walk us through that.
It wasn't, to be honest with you. I went to the best school I got into. I had it gotten in my mind. I was like, I want to get a big firm job. I want to have a very set career path, like where I would maybe be a federal prosecutor. I had these dreams of like achieving all of these things, and that's what took me away from New York. I went to law school in Chicago, where I really didn't know anyone, and so I did well in school, but I think along the way, I got my dream job. I got a job. I only looked in New York for firm jobs, and I got a job at a big firm, and immediately I could tell it was like the wrong career path for me. Like my first week I went in and I was like, everything we do here is stupid. Like everything is like makes no sense.
This is very familiar with like all my peers, all my friends. This is a very familiar story.
I think so, and I didn't realize how common of a story it was at the time. I thought it was just me, so I was like, I'm gonna suck it up. I'm living the dream here. At this job, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm a lawyer now. I'm gonna be a lawyer. So I actually during my 3L year, I was like really close. I was like, I think I don't want this job. I'm gonna apply and try to work at the Manhattan DA. And so I went through that process, but I actually didn't get the job. And like my whole I was trying to like do something different, but I couldn't make it work. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the big firm, and that's when I started dating this girl in my 3L year. She had to be in Chicago. She was in med school at the time, and so I never expected it, but I actually went back to New York to start at the firm. An opening came up with the judge who I had mentioned earlier. This judge was looking for a law clerk, and so I was able to quit my firm job and go work for the judge in Chicago for 2 years, while my wife, my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife, was still in school. There's this common pattern in my life. I just keep on doing these weird things in different places, and that's what's taken me to California and away from New York, which is probably why I hold on to my Knicks fandom so tightly. But I ended up in Chicago. I ended up living in Chicago for a few more years, and then that's when we kind of after my clerkship, I went back to New York. I worked at the firm for 2 years, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. My wife had gotten a residency in California, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to go to California, and I'm going to just figure it out there. And so by leaving, I had to like start over in a sense, because I needed to retake the bar. I needed to find a job. And, this is in 2014. The job I found didn't work out. And like, I was kind of like trying to figure out. And then I started my own solo practice. So by my first 6 years of my post law school years was like, I was trying to figure stuff out. I was moving all over the place. I was trying to jump on any opportunity I could. And I realized like the path I drew out for myself didn't work. And that's when I kind of fell into legal tech, because at the Bay Area at the time, the startup scene was kind of starting to emerge. There were no real startups serving legal except for a handful of them. And I applied for a sales job because I was like, hey, if I could work with people and I could pitch them, speak the lawyer language and convince them to buy technology, maybe I could find a place there. And I never imagined like I would do that for 5 years at 2 different startups. And so I was a salesperson for legal tech for 5 years. And by the time I was, doing that and getting good at that, I started to do things like use social media to market myself, to get deals, to sell technology to lawyers. That brought me to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to TikTok. And then it wasn't long before Ironclad, which is, one of the bigger players in legal tech, because legal tech had grown up by then. But this is in 2021. Legal tech had gotten big by then. One of the biggest players in legal tech said, hey, we like what you're doing on social media. Why don't you join us and do this community thing? It's a head of community development job, just making social media content, engaging with the community, hosting events, just doing very like fun things almost. And it's like a career path I never expected, but that's somehow my job now.
Dude, you took a second bar exam and then went into sales?
Yeah.
Thank you. Hold on.
My God.
Hold on.
That right there takes a lot.
John, it's not just he took any bar exam. He took the New York State bar exam and the California bar exam. That's insanity. That's torture.
Sales. I gotta know more.
So here's what here's what you know about me, right? So I torture myself with bar exams, and I torture myself as a Knicks fan. I'm not sure what else there is, but you see this theme in my life. I just like to do things the hard way.
Can we offer you becoming a Jets fan? Because that's right on path.
Yes, for sure.
Oh man, I didn't expect this to turn out this way. And I actually do this thing where I'm like, I don't think about the past too much, because I feel like if you dwell on it, there's nothing you can do about it. When I was going through the California bar exam, I did have that thought. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, why am I doing this all over again? I took the New York bar exam, I got to do in California. And it's like a whole, like in California at the time, it was like 3 days long. And so I was doing all these things just to make sure my career worked. And that's why when I think back to it, it was so different being having a normal practicing lawyer job than legal tech, because in tech, you don't need a license. If you're good at what you do, opportunities will arise. And that's what happened to me. Like I started when I joined legal tech, I started from the very bottom. I was an entry-level salesperson. I went from like being a 6th-year lawyer to like cold calling, like lawyers who had graduated law school after me and being like, hey, do you want to see a product demo of our software? It was very humbling. Like, it was a very humbling experience.
I was going to say, so was that like a pride? Like, what did that do to your pride? Because I know, we had, Alex and I were attorneys, right? Mm-hmm. And we're doing this podcast thing. We're quote unquote bloggers, right? Which is, on the lowest of the totem pole, right? If you ask, a random person, hey, you're just a blogger, why would you do that? Why are you wasting your time? If you're an attorney, I want to know how you were able to overcome that pride stuff, because, you mentioned, you were dating the same girl that you married. You mentioned coming from an immigrant family that makes fun of you for watching the Knicks.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like we could relate here. And I just want to know, as a person for you, right? Because everyone has a different experience, but how were you able to just, kind of pick yourself up by the bootstraps and say, I know I have 2, of the hardest bar exams, in the nation, maybe in the world. I know that this is not what I want to do. And I know that everybody in my family is going to receive this terribly wrong, but you still went for your dream, right? You still,
yeah.
And, look where you are now. Like, what was that transition like for you?
I mean, it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. And, when I first started out, like I said, I knew I had a hunch that the traditional law practice of law wasn't for me, and I still stuck with it. And, I think what looks like courage and strategic vision now, looking backwards, at the time, I went from failure to failure. So what happened was I struggled at the big firm. It wasn't a good fit for me. I did okay at the job, but I was like, all right, I'm moving to California. When I went to that small firm, I did not do well. Like, I was not a great employee. Like, and I got fired. They were like, all right, we need you to leave because this isn't working out. And, I've shared about this publicly because I think it's important to talk about. A lot of times, like, people make pivots out of like strategic decisions, but like, I think most people make changes when you run into a wall. You kind of like got to pick yourself up. And so I got let go from the job, and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to become my own boss. I'm going to start my own business. I want to do that. And so I did that for a year, and that didn't work out. So like, the 6 years I spent practicing law, like a third of that time, or even half that time, was spent like figuring out how to get past the bar, like this California bar exam, like struggling at this new job that didn't work out, trying to build a business that didn't work out. Like I messed up a lot. And I think that is the part where people get really caught up, where they don't want to put themselves out there to where they could mess up. Like, a lot of lawyers are struck by this. Like, what if I fail? What if I mess up? And they get worried. But by doing that, I shed this psychological baggage of like, oh, I had this JD and I have to use it. I was like, all right, I'm going to do anything right now. Like, what else is out there? And that clearing of like all these thoughts I had about pride and all that, like clearing that out, it let me basically pick a growing market where I actually was naturally good at. Like, I ended up being very good at sales. Like, and if you think about like the type of person who's good at sales, typically isn't the type of person who's good at law. Like, there's like a complementary skill set. So like, by getting into tech early, I think I rode a wave. And so it's not strategy so much. It is like kind of like picking yourself up and dealing with setbacks and then trying different things. So I think that's what ended up helping me. And then when I got in, I saw like where things were developing. I saw the power of content. I saw media. I saw social media. And so I was able to every step of the way kind of position myself to the point where I joined TikTok like relatively early. Not super early, but like earlier than most lawyers, and kind of like got ahead of the curve. So I've been very lucky in that way. I'm not going to pretend like I had some grand vision. I really just messed up again and again, and just kind of like found something that worked.
But that's like, see, you talked about like the process of failure, right? And I feel like that's been ingrained. And I feel like, John, you let me know, but like going in law school, that is the biggest thing, is failure, because that's the one thing. It's like they have you in that room. It's like, look to your left, look to your right. Some of you aren't going to be here after your first year. And it's like, oh, that's failure. Like it's an investment, like you going to law school is a big investment, and you don't want to fail at it. And then afterwards, and especially since I feel like in law school, like, sure, you may do your study groups, but you don't know everyone else's thoughts. It's not like math where it's like, oh, you can all get to the same answer. Like, how do you write this? How do you come to your conclusion? How do you do your analysis? Why do you see everything? And then sometimes people give you a totally different analysis, and it may not be the right answer, but the professor loves the analysis and they'll give you that good grade that you're looking for. So how were you able to like shed just like that failure? Like, I know you said it right now, like by falling into it, but like, did you find that to be hard? Like shedding that failure fear? Because I feel like for most attorneys, that is a wall that's just very hard to like break through.
Yeah, and it's a muscle you build over time. I think in the beginning, like, I mean, I did encounter failure, but I also did a lot of side experiments or side things when I was working in law, so that when I did make the jump, I had some hunches. Like what? Why did I choose like sales in the first place? I chose sales because when I was practicing, like I worked on political campaigns and I would do cold calls, and I found that it was a small way. Like if I'd failed at a side job, it wouldn't hurt my career. I could try these different things, and I think a lot of lawyers also don't try things. That's why I love like what you're doing. Like you're doing this podcast. You're doing a lot of things on the side. That is the way to go, because then you learn about yourself. You learn about where you fit into the world, and that's where I learned I could be good at sales. Like when I went into legal tech sales, it was not kind of like I picked something out of the hat. I was like, okay, I picked legal tech because I had this other experience encountering, like trying something different that had a risk of failure, but I did well at it. I'm going to take this information about myself and use it. I'm going to go into sales. Why would I choose legal tech? It's because I'm a lawyer by training. I know law. So like I could be useful there. So it was almost like it wasn't a completely random decision to go into legal tech, but it did require me to try for things that were risky while I had a day job.
So let's keep going on that to like legal tech now, because this is like, we talk, especially for like, I do in-house counsel work. I've been working as in-house counsel. I've been in my second in-house counsel job, and legal tech is like so important when you're like trying to streamline documents and stuff like that. How, like, what can you say about legal tech? I guess that like, and obviously like your law career path helps you like being able to talk to attorneys and be able to sell them on that stuff. But what can I guess the question is, what, like, it's so hard because it's like legal tech is still so new, but like, what do you enjoy like about legal tech so far? Like outside of like your job, like what's like the greatness of it that we're still learning about?
I mean, when you think about why people don't like being lawyers, you think about everything you do as a lawyer. Like as your day jobs, there's parts that you like, parts you don't like. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff you don't like is like the grunt work, the routine work or detail-oriented work that you didn't go to law school for. Now, historically,
are you sitting next to me in my office?
It's so funny how common that theme is. It's like we all, like, no matter what job you have, work in the government, you work at a firm, in-house, like it's the same. And that work in the rest of the world has been automated. For whatever reason, lawyers want to continue doing it. Maybe it's the billable hour, maybe it's culture that we want to grind it out, but for the rest of the world, technology has automated that and has made, created a lot of value because the people working in those industries aren't focused on like, changing the file names and making sure the margins are correct. But in law, for whatever reason, we do that. We certainly, paralegals do that sometimes, but like, lawyers are doing that too, like making sure there's the commas in the right place, the words in the right place. So what technology really offers is the ability to put you at the highest value use. Like you went to law school, you had this legal experience and you had this judgment. You should be using that. You should not be doing like formatting issues on Microsoft Word or like document reviews, clicking a button that says this document is relevant or not. Like you should be doing some higher level stuff. And I think that the legal world's starting to recognize that a little bit slower than everyone else, but that's why you're seeing the growth, because when you rely on technology to do those things, it's also more efficient and it unlocks a lot of value. So I do think that a lot of lawyers, are starting to see that. That's why, that's why I think our space grew, and that's why I'm staying in it, because I think that that's where the opportunity is.
Speaking of opportunity, and speaking of really breaking the mold, man, and I mean, how to be honest with you, how we got orientated to you, right, was through TikTok and through LinkedIn, man, because you're talking about how the legal world is not caught up to that tech side, the legal world is definitely not caught up to the TikTok side of the world, especially, the humor that you got going on and just in general to be honest, when you ask me, is it hard to be a lawyer, right? Like I mentor a lot of college and high school kids, sometimes even junior high kids around the area here out in Staten Island and Brooklyn. And the number one answer I always tell them is it's not difficult being a lawyer. It's literally not difficult. Going to law school is not hard. Like everyone like kills me when I say that. I'm like, going to med school is hard. You got to learn stuff and you got to memorize and you can kill someone, right? With law school, like you all you have to do is read and put your hard work into it. And at the end of the day, you have to understand something and just make it as simple as possible, right? Because there's all these complicated words. I worked in government, I worked in immigration, now I'm working with the federal government. Like there's all these complicated scenarios, but if you could just speak to people in simple language, in simple words that they understand, and all this antiquated nonsense just becomes, here's what legal tech does for me, here's what this law says, here's what this bill means, and we can move on from there. And you would be so surprised. Like that is the number one most reviewed, most receptive things by clients is, wow, they just explained to me what I needed to know and, didn't speak legalese at me. So, that all that to say is that's exactly what you're doing on TikTok. I know there's some, there's humor involved, but I want to know from your side, like what's the reception from the legal community, right? Because I could definitely see from, the bird's eye view, everything's fantastic. When you speak to me, I'm so happy that, I'm able to understand, but then there's a stigma, right? Oh, would you learn that from TikTok? Right. So so there has to be some sort of middle ground where you are able to give, real information, real facts, but you want people to still take you seriously, even though you're on, this TikTok app that, you tell, if I go tell my partner from my last firm, hey, I'm going to, start putting us on TikTok, like he would fire me. He'd be like, I don't care about your billable hours. I don't care what we've been doing. Like there's no TikTok going on here. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think social media is one of the most interesting phenomenons that's happening right now. And I didn't expect it to build on it, but like when I went into sales, I couldn't like get enough leads. And so I had to figure out from social media if I could do social selling. I started posting in 2016 on LinkedIn and eventually expanded to TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And what I can say is that the way you balance it is by understanding the context of how all social media fits in. Because if you think about like TikTok and Twitter, that's like hanging out with your boys at the bar, right? That is the vibe. You come in talking about business, like people will laugh at you. They're going to call you a nerd, right? But then you bring it over to LinkedIn, where it's like you're at the water cooler at work. It's a different energy. So if there is a way for you to meet lots of people at the bar and make people laugh and just have a good time, and you say, hey, let's go check out, let's actually, you're a lawyer, let's go talk about some more serious stuff over on LinkedIn. All of these platforms are like that. They are all a different medium. And I would expand it beyond social media. I would say podcast is a medium, just like a newsletter is a medium. And so, I think the challenge among lawyers is that they see one thing and they think that's everything. Like they might say, oh, this fool is on TikTok, he's a joker, he's a clown. But what happens is they start looking into you. Oh, this guy on TikTok, like, what's he all about? Let me go look up his name. And then you look him up on LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn. You're like, oh, he's at Ironclad. What's that all about? See some of my content. It's a little bit more serious, a little bit more thoughtful. I've got a newsletter about legal tech. So like there is a content flow to this. And I think that is how you balance it. And, companies do this all the time. It's just people haven't done it as much. And so you could see like it's different environments require different contexts. And that's how you would do it. And that's something I learned just by selling technology, because I realized like, for example, when you're like at a client dinner, you don't want to be selling all the time. You want to talk about, their hobbies, their family, like the things they care about, sports. And then, you throw in a little bit of a nugget like, oh yeah, by the way, this is what I offer. And then you like, let it go. And I think as a salesperson, I learned a lot of these concepts, and then I've brought them with me to my content creation journey.
Well, let me tell you, I watch your TikToks and I crack up, especially when it comes to the sales bro and general counsel. It always has me laughing, especially because it's more relatable to my last job. And I'm like, just seeing all the legal issues, I'm like, yes, 1000% yes. I just see it. So it's great.
It feels like inside jokes between you and us.
Yeah, no, it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the inside jokes are exactly what make it funny. I've done things, I put out videos where I'm like, I put in a lot of effort into it and it doesn't land because people don't find it relatable. And then I'll put together something in 20 seconds and people will like love it. It will go viral just because it's relatable. The relatability, like I think
You're speaking our language, man. You're speaking
Yeah.
our language, man. We work on like these crazy guys, like these crazy episodes, and like all of a sudden everyone's all over one of our shorts. So
Yeah.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
It's the content creator's journey. Like I feel like there's a lot there. And for me, I think that there's a lot of material to work with in the legal industry. There's a lot of BS and a lot of ridiculousness that happens in our world. And by making fun of it, it brings people together. It's kind of crazy.
I love that. So so we talked about so much bad, man. We talked about what's things about our jobs right now, like your previous jobs. We talked about, the perils of social media and getting through and kind of working through them. But for the people and for us, honestly, like what's your favorite part? Like you can't tell me being a salesman, like you love being a salesman that much. I'm not buying that, right? So tell me what you love about your transition to being a lawyer, even as a content creator. If you don't really want to talk about the tech side, like what do you enjoy? Like, what gets you up in the morning? Because I know for us, we love this, and because we have other things going on, it's not an issue. We kind of, even honest to God, man, even through tragedy, right, through good time, when something great happens, when something horrible happens in our life or with sports, the first thing we want to do is come right here and talk about the Knicks, or make a podcast or make an episode about anything, because it really does get us just into a happy place, but also into a different realm. So that's our happy place. That's why we're here. So I kind of want to know from you, like, what do you enjoy? Like, what makes you, do a TikTok and like think about it? And obviously you're writing, right? You're not making that all up on the spot. So, what's your motivator?
I've always been fascinated by what moves people. I think that is the most important thing to me. That's why I went to law school. I thought I was going to be a trial lawyer and persuade people and juries and judges. That didn't end up happening. I found my place in tech, where I was instead persuading and trying to figure out what moves people, like lawyers, to buy technology. It was very narrow, right? But over time, I think the thing that I love most is the ability to like create something that changes someone's mind. Like I think, and that can be used obviously in very negative ways, but it can also be used in very positive ways. So I think that for me, making people laugh, I think allows you to send out some pretty important messages. Like every single one of my videos that make fun of the legal profession, there's an underlying message to it. And most people, I think, get it. They're like, there is a lot that we can do to change our profession and the industry. And that's what motivates me. I think spreading that message and seeing how it impacts people, because it's not the content is only a small part of this entire experience. Like I put out a funny video, goes viral. It is the comments and the community that comes together below it.
Yes.
That is the coolest part.
We agree completely.
And I gotta say, you all probably can really relate to this, because it's exactly what this all is, right? And I think that to me is what gets me up. I think that is closer to what I always wanted to do. Not necessarily sit in an office and write things down and research cases, but really engage with the community and see if I can make things better for everyone.
All right. So last question, Alex, because we know we got to get you out of here. Now you say that you're using your social media platform with your current job as head of community development at Ironclad. Tell us a little more about that. Just like, how is that day to day going? Because that is so interesting and so fascinating to see how your worlds are legitimately coming together.
Yeah. I mean, I started off by trying to figure out how to leverage community and social media to get myself sales. Now I'm trying to help figure out how to do it for a company. And Ironclad is a digital contracting platform, so it helps corporate legal departments generate contracts faster. So we are always trying to promote ourselves to that group. How do you cut through? There's actually a lot of companies that are trying to do that, and if you can imagine law firms try to do the same thing. There's rainmakers that are trying to always get more clients, and so everyone's trying to figure out this problem. For me, because I built it for myself, I have some insights into how to do it for a company. And that involves not just stuff on social media. There's a lot more. There's like events, there's community forums, there's like a lot of very similar to what you're doing. This is increasingly important in the business world. I feel like in the past it's all been like a hobby for fun, but if you can capture that attention and create community, that's just so valuable in the business world. And I think that legal tech companies are starting to see it. I wouldn't be surprised if law firms and other more conservative companies will start seeing it too. So that's what I'm working on, and I feel like I love what I do, and I feel very lucky, especially since I had some bad experiences earlier on in my career, not having the right job. So I encourage anybody else who's listening to this to take some risks and try different things, because you never know what's going to happen.
Take some risk and try different things. I love that. I think that's a great way to end it. Isn't that right, Mr. Rain Meka Meleka?
Yeah, he said Meka Meleka. That's my nickname. I was definitely hyped about that. But last question. Just this is a basketball podcast. The Knicks aren't in it. You did mention the Knicks and the Warriors. Are you hyped about the Warriors? Do you have a favorite in this NBA championship, or are you just sort of casually watching it until we get to the end here?
I think I'm very bullish on the Warriors. I think that Steph Curry is very special. He puts, he makes the players around him better than him. And I've seen a lot of memes about KD lately related to that. I don't know if y'all seen that, but I
might
really
get
do
swept, man.
That's the thing, right? The memes always have a truth behind. The jokes always have a truth behind them, and I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that I would, I don't know. There's a lot of great contenders, but I think the Warriors are going to do pretty well.
All right, Alex. On that note, please let our listeners know where they can find you, and thank you for coming on and just giving us like your knowledge, your career path, your Knicks takes, and your NBA takes. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on all social media platforms. I'm most active on LinkedIn, Alex Sue. You can also find me as Legal Tech Bro on TikTok. I've got a Twitter account and an Instagram account that are less active, but it's Alex Sue. But yeah, once you find me on one of these platforms, I connect to the others. So yeah, just find me wherever you're most active.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex, for your time and for giving us all this knowledge. And everyone out there who's listening, you know what to do. All right. If you listen to this podcast and you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to do so. We're on all listening platforms. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, Stitcher, you name it. We are there. If you listen to us on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to give us a 5-star rating. And if you listen to us on Apple, please make sure to leave a comment. We're also on YouTube, Knicks, Jets, etc. Make sure to find the page, subscribe to it, hit that notification bell. That way you know when a new episode drops. When you watch a video, leave a comment, hit the like button. It's just a polite thing to do. Add to the conversation. We want to know your thoughts on this one. So make sure to do so. And while you're over there, make sure to check out Winning Picks Weekly. You need a place to bet in any sport, no matter what. John, video producer Greg, Chip Murphy, these guys got you. And then last and certainly not least, we're on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, we're there. Thank you once again to Alex Sue for coming on and giving us his stuff. We'll catch you later, Knicks fans. We out.
Let's go Knicks.